Got a little
Well,
bit of time here.
we got a bit of time, and what I was gonna do if you when we're ready, we can just I can throw it onto the stream just like a pre-show type stuff.
That works. And to be quite honest, we could always just throw the stream on early. I mean, pre-show banter is actually some of the best parts of fan interaction. We can
Yep.
actually
Agreed.
take questions and that kind of thing too. So
Yep. Well, that being said, why don't I do the pre-show? I'll start the stream now, so
let's do that.
Yeah, that's
that
no
makes it easier.
problem for me.
And I will throw up the chat window to see if anyone does actually ask us questions. I was surprised. I thought with the foam cutting thing I did yesterday, I thought there'd be at least a couple people would ask questions, but there really wasn't any questions.
I meant to tune into that because I'm
It
very.
was, yeah, I was to say it was really neat to see how to do it, and it's funny because he had Alex, who's one of the local guys here. He actually lives in Toronto, but he's getting married, and he works in Waterloo, which is about a hour's drive from Toronto. But he's getting married, and they're moving out here because he works at a tech startup. But he brought his buddy as well, and his buddy had never done it before. Did a perfect job, like perfect cut everything. Gets in my hand, I'm going all over the place. I'm overshooting it and stuff like that. So I was the how not to do it example when cutting foam last night. But yeah, it makes so much more sense because I don't know if he basically picked up the equivalent of 20 trays for $50 Canadian.
Holy moly!
Yeah, so it's at least the guys here locally will pre-cut it to the exact shape. So he does them as half tray sizes, so they fit in the Battle Foam 720 case.
Yeah.
So he basically, and you can customize it. Now when he does his large base models, he puts them on their side, which I was originally a little hesitant, but what he does is because there's so much cutoff, like because you're not using 90% of the foam, he custom cuts inserts into the colossal tray or the colossal parts so they can rest. So he can sort of basically create a nice little pillow for the colossal when it's lying on its side. So he can fit two of them in a half tray.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's like 5 inches tall. So I mean, you can't. You can do your stuff so tightly packed at a fraction of the cost.
Is there a capture of that I can watch?
There's one on YouTube which is just us filming it and talking about it. The proper edited tutorial will be probably about a week or so.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm looking forward to it because I've got my trolls are getting big enough to the point, and a lot of them are so non-standard that I'm gonna have to start coming up with custom options for the foam.
Yep.
And I'm planning on taking gargantuan so much more that I need to come up with ways to more creatively hold all the stuff that I want to bring.
Agreed. And the nice thing too is that depending on do you have a bag right now, like a battle foam bag or a?
I have a standard battle foam with the paint bag.
Okay. Now, is that the Privateer Press one or the
Privateer
the?
Press.
Yeah, okay, because I found out that again Alex talks about it, each of the different bag lines have different sized foams. So if you know you're committed to that size, you're good to go. He went with the 720 just because it had a lot more flexibility, but he doesn't fly anywhere, he doesn't travel anywhere, so you could never put that thing on. You'd have to check that bag, not bring it on as carry-on, which I think everyone sort of shudders when they think about checking their models.
Oh yeah, no,
I put my bag once because I travel on staff travel. Then you have to go on what we call standby travel.
Yep.
Whenever I get like my discounted tickets. And when I took the Alaska Airlines flight from San Francisco to Seattle, I had to check in my my bag for that flight, and that's only like a 2-hour flight. And I must have been about a dozen breakages.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And so much and the models have been bumped and bounced so much that some of the bits that had broken off were ended up in bloody different sockets of the trays, So that only reinforces my point of never do check-in, never check in your model cases.
Yes, never. Ugh.
Yeah, I've heard only bad things from that. So.
Yeah. Well,
so we have.
Legion is mostly unpainted. I have 4 painted guys for it, so. And I don't think I actually took any of my painted models with me, ironically enough. I painted Veil 1, didn't like Veil 1's playstyle, so did not take Veil. I painted up some Grotesques because I loved the look of the new units, got about 4 of them painted, Night Meta Transport needed the entire paint bag, effectively, just to put 2 half trays in it, just to carry them. And those were large base, they're supposed to be cavalry trays.
Yikes.
So in the end, so they did not come along, so I left them behind. So I didn't actually take any painted miniatures with me to lock and load. No, that's a lie. Sorry, my Blightbringer was the one painted model I took with me.
Wow.
Oh,
Waking
me. Sorry, I didn't close my mic.
everybody up.
Oh, jeez. Allergies are killing me.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's like going back to Epic Madrak for a second. I've already been like looking over synergies with different models and stuff, and even if it wasn't already a no-brainer to take with him, I've been looking at how you combo like the Creel Stone with him.
Yeah.
If the Creel Stone if the actual bearer of himself is one of the guys within 3 inches of Madrak,
So
it effectively extends his Grim Salvation radius to about 7 inches.
So yeah, it's basically the way that Take Up used to work.
Oh,
right?
that's right. You basically swap it onto the bearer,
Creel
and
Stone, who self-sacks onto one of his scribes.
Oh, it keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, he's gonna hit the errata pretty quick.
Obligatory warders around him, and then you keep 1 fen blade around him as well, in case somebody is dumb enough to shoot him.
And then they get vengeance.
And then you pass that on to the fen blades. Fen blade takes damage, and then good old vengeance times.
Yeah, I mean that's taking into consideration that at that point in the game that the fen blades haven't already out-threaded your entire army, charged and killed all your shit.
Yeah, obviously, but but it leaves the facility there for that kind of nonsense to happen.
Yeah, it's
That's
pretty
crazy.
silly. Like, I'm really surprised that the PP didn't see this coming. Like, if he's not in the first errata, I'll be surprised.
Yeah.
What would they do? Like, if they're gonna nerf him a little bit, how are they gonna nerf him? They're gonna take away Grim Salvation or put it back down to 1 inch?
No, they're probably gonna nerf the feat first. Him being unkillable is not the biggest problem. The feat is the problem. Like we keep exaggerating like it's not true, but I mean, Madrak will kill your entire army, your battle group, and your caster in 1 turn by himself, and there's not a lot you can do to stop him. So it's kind of silly.
Yeah, whereas Grim Salvation by itself is fine. His Rathrock's Awakening by itself is fine. His feat by itself is fine. But you throw all 3 together on 1 caster, and you have an almost unkillable warcaster with an unstoppable offense.
That's true. So,
Yeah.
unlike you, Matt, I'm going to play him as much as possible before he gets nerfed.
Go ahead. Let's be fair. I've had a lot of experience with him, and I've had a lot of experience with that feat because I used to use it with Madrak 1 so much. So it'll be just like riding a bike for me when I take him to a tournament because I've had so much experience. That being said, I'm not going to subject my friends that I play this game with casually now to things that will just make them not want to play me anymore.
That's true. No, I
still want to have people to play against. So instead, I'm probably going to play Gunny tomorrow.
Yeah,
nice.
I would probably play him once just to say, yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a dick move, but just so you know what you're expecting, welcome to Madrak 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been sitting there trying to think of what kind of lists counters him, and there are not many of them.
I'm coming up blank on a lot of cases.
Whereas Kane 2 is probably one of the few, because you just plow shots into all the guys around him, and you just use the trick shot ones, so you're bouncing like power 10s for free everywhere all over the place.
The warders still make that really difficult though, just because the shield guards.
Yeah, but you can only shield guard once each, and he has a lot of shots.
Yeah, I know. There's still fucking 5 guys in the unit. And they're armor 21, so all of the early low-pow shots get sucked into warders. and the warders you choose. So it's, I don't know. I don't even think that that's good. Like I honestly think the only way to do it is probably like triple colossal or double colossal in a lot of cases. Like so hurricane, whatever with Haley would be bad.
Yeah, whereas you can build, there are a couple of specific skill lists you can build that can deal with it. One is like, for example, the Nemo 10 charges list that I was joking on about the other day would actually be a pretty good drop against an Epic Madrak, just because each charger has enough hits that it will slow down his feet, and that many auto fully boosted power 12s will clean out his infantry line.
I can attest to that.
Yeah, for the most part.
That was my round 2 of my tournament.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on your loadout.
But
so there's how many chargers? 10?
So 10 chargers with Nemo 1 and a unit of the Tactical Arcanist Corps and a Squire. And I think you had...
They get 2 shots a pop, right?
You get 2 shots each, range 12, power 12, every attack fully boosted, every turn.
You know what's
it was brutal.
You know what's funny about that? Is Gunny just like shuts that list down.
Exactly. That's a skill list that will run very well against a lot of armies, but that's why I think Gunny is the perfect counter list to Madrak.
Yeah, Gunny handles a lot of shit that he can't handle, and that's not a lot, but it's still things that he can't handle, and Gunny's good enough as it is.
Oh yeah, Gunny I'd half considered like building like a Gunbjorn 3.0 list on the Trollblood forum.
Yeah.
Just like a sequel to my old one. But without me actually seriously playing into Trolls at the moment, I don't really... It kind of feels like almost, like offhanded, like half-assed, so...
Yeah, it's a little theory crap. I'm having a hard time trying to figure out what infantry he actually likes, and I keep coming down to just battle group heavy lists, and I'm not certain what to do yet.
At the moment, battle group heavy lists are no longer the trap with him they used to be.
Yeah.
Before you'd go guided fire, ooh, shiny. Okay, that's kind of rubbish, but...
Yeah, now the bombers are so much more effective on their own, and blitzers and Dozer and Smig are fucking bonkers with them. So.
Yeah, Dozer and Smig, especially now with the new forum rulings about tramples. The blitzer and Dozer suddenly become so much more better, because you can trample, still make your initial attack without having to spend fury, and then get a kill shot attack, and you're +2 mat to try to get that kill shot attack. So.
Yep. Seems pretty good.
It's pretty legit. But yeah, it's like he loves both colossals for different reasons. Explosivo on the Mountain King with his assault spray is hilarious.
Yeah, magical assault spray.
Well, not only that, but it's just every single guy that he kills is removed from play and explodes, doing power 8s to everything else around them.
Oh god, it's so dumb. I think I'm changing my list now.
So it's completely bombastic.
Yeah.
The only real thing the only real shame is that the kill shot rule on the Mountain King is wasted because Gunny gives it to everyone in his battle group anyway. But similarly, Gunny also loves the Glacier King because Explosivo on Thunderbolts is also brilliant.
So does the Explosivo happen at the end of the push?
Yes, because Thunderbolt happens on hit, and Explosivo happens after the attack is resolved.
So
spread out to avoid AoEs.
And then it explodes. It's so good.
So people spread out to avoid AoEs, especially if they see like you have like a war wagon in your list, so they'll spread out to try to avoid the AoE 5s. So then you just pick and choose guys that you shoot to push them into other guys and then explode them.
Hilarious. All right, are we ready to go, guys? It's 7 o'clock.
Almost. I'm just waiting to check the audio. Can you give me audio levels?
All right. Fraser, do you want to talk a bit about the reporting tool in the news?
I absolutely do, because it's my baby, which I'm talking to apparently everybody about.
I mean, there's cool stuff, and I mean, I love what we've gathered so far. It's kind of interesting to look at. So I figured it was.
I agree. Perfect. Yep. I think we're good. So. let me know when we're ready to. Did you want to do your? Are you ready for your intro, or do you want to? Okay, so let me switch over here. Start the recording. So it's just. Well, apparently they get to hear me talk about the recording.
Hooray.
So. And not you guys. They have to listen to me and only me at this point. So I will switch us over, and we're ready to go in now.
Hello and welcome once again to another episode of the Scrumcast over at handcannononline.com, where most trolls might not be happy with Mark III, but it's definitely our grim salvation. I am Goris, your host. Sadly, not with me, as always, is the press ganger formerly known as the guy. Dallas is sick this week, so I'm going to go ahead and move on, and we'll talk with our Canadian troll, Fraser Belfour, Defhead Dice on all things social media.
Evening, folks.
And with us once again, and I hope this is a recurring thing, we've got Baka Ryu, Mike Davis. Welcome.
Cheers, guys.
So, we've got a pretty exciting episode here. More Mark III review. We're going to be talking about solos and units, and we're going to give a highly biased opinion from each of us on what we've been given so far. And I say that not just because I'm the Rainbow of the Creoles, but because Mike's currently playing Legion, so there's no way that there can't be bias in there.
So are we supposed to ignore what Mike says and just...
I don't know. I think we just muse Mike when he's talking during this podcast.
So we make him stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning his time just to put him on mute? Is that what we're doing?
Did I say that out loud? Oops.
Yes.
Oops.
Well, you wouldn't be the first people to heckle me when I'm trying to say something, and I doubt you'll be the last. So.
That's probably fair. But first, Fraser, we've got the battle reporting tool back up and running. Tell us about that.
We do, and it's new and improved. Previously, when we were using it, it was just tracking the Trollblood stuff. Now we're tracking everybody. And so we're asking everyone to put their games in. And originally, when we were reporting it, we were just reporting the games that were recorded to us because we didn't want to come up with things. But there was as we've called out before, and Dallas was always mentioning this, is whenever he did any things like this before, is people typically don't like putting in their bad games. They only put in the wins. So we were seeing a heavy skew on all of the factions winning like 70-80% of their games, which we know mathematically isn't possible. So what I've done is I've tweaked the results a little bit, so we're actually seeing, and it's not quite 100% because it isn't an even 50-50 split, but what we're doing is now when we're reporting, we're taking the losses and then adding them to the other results, so we're getting a much better, more realistic look of what's actually happening based on what's being reported. So we're at about 250, I think we're just under 250 games reported so far, so we're beginning to see some good data. What I'm going to start doing is breaking that down by faction, by caster, against other faction, as opposed to how they're doing against other factions, what our casters are doing against different factions, and sort of breaking that down and start posting that on a regular basis. I still have to confirm the home of this. I think this may wind up either going on handcannon.com or handcannononline.com, sorry, or one of the other. I may wind up posting it on my one as well. So, or maybe everywhere. And again, as I've mentioned this before, the idea of this data is this isn't exclusively our data. So once I get away, I can share it with everyone. The raw data is available to anyone, since I'm sure there's smarter people out there than me that can do some of the analysis work. I'm still working on it. And actually, I'll do a quick call out. If you know how to handle unstructured data, because I want to be able to pull a lot of the list stuff out without having people that manually put their list in through drop downs and pre-done forms. If you have a suggestion for handling unstructured data, let me know, because that's the one thing I'm sort of scratching my head at right now. So, but there's a link on the Facebook page for the TrollbloodScrum, which, by the way, the Facebook page hit 500 likes this week, so that's a nice little monument for us. So thank you everyone for that.
Woo-hoo.
And so I'm going to pin the reporter to the Facebook page and to the slight plug the 4 New Gamers page as well, which is my other podcast. And any questions can be directed at either location until we centralize everything. There, that was all the boring stuff's out of the way, so we can carry on now.
Ha! Well, it's not super boring. So, actually, you were speaking earlier about how the data seems sort of skewed towards the win rate. Now, earlier today, we were talking about how you were going to try and normalize that a little bit.
Correct. So what I've done is I've And again, I know just enough to be dangerous when it comes to Excel and stuff. So I'm actually using Google Docs and then going into exports into a Google Sheet. So I can do a pivot table that tells me by faction what the number of total games, wins, and losses. And then what I do is in another sheet, I take that information, reverse it by the opponent faction, and then get my wins and losses, and then just add the two values together. And it's not quite perfect because there was a couple defects in the tool when I first started. For example, the ret page didn't go to the opponent page right away. It went straight to the end, so there was a couple defects. So my data isn't 100% solid right now. What I'm hoping to do is I'll figure out when I know the date it was bug-free, I'll start reporting from that date going forward. But it's just a quick and dirty way of thinking of just getting both the win and the loss results accurately. The only drawback is if you play your buddy, you both put your game in, then it doubles up on the results. But to be honest, I don't think most people are doing that. I think it's usually one or the other that's doing it.
That's highly likely.
Yeah, and the only other drawback is if we want to start analyzing the actual lists, like, again, that whole unstructured data idea is if someone just dumps in the export from War Room of their entire list, we can start pulling out like how many Trollblood lists brought Mulg or how many of them brought Warders. We can start looking at that data, but we have to find a way to scrub that information. So if one person is putting in for both games, the onus is on them to put both their lists in, so we may not get as much of the that unstructured data. So it's sort of a balance. I have to figure out which way it goes. I'm not to the point where I can look at the unstructured data yet with any kind of proficiency, so I'm not worried about losing that right now. But down the road, we may have to have like a light version and a more in-depth version. Yeah. And the other option, I think, one of the first or second comments is when is the iOS version coming out? And I'm thinking, I have no idea how to write an app. So it's And I don't want to take over stuff. I don't want to take over something like I use Iron Gauntlet because I have an Android device. I use Iron Gauntlet, which is a fantastic app, but it stores everything locally. If there was a way for them to upload that stuff and then collect all the information, that would be fantastic, because that means servers, costs, and things like this. And I'm doing this on the cheap, so I'm not really willing to pay for this. But I think there's some really I think we're going to see some really interesting stuff, and we'll be able to see trends, or like take 1 month snapshots and see what's going, and then we can track it over a year. And can you tell I do a little bit of analytics at work?
Just a little bit.
Yeah,
what's kind of funny too is that we're kind of like laying the groundwork for like a meta-analysis type of application here, where you're getting a snapshot of what's working, what you're seeing, and as far as warlocks and stuff. And it is really a shame that we don't have access to easy ways to to sort of source this easily and have it actually be super accurate. So.
Well, I think to some extent there is the information, right? Because Privateer Press collects that on all their steamroller events, all the local events. They collect that, but they don't share it, which, I mean, I guess they consider proprietary because they're the ones hosting the events. But it's only on a competitive level. I'm really interested about that casual play. One, to see how many people are playing casually, because I know most of the people in our meta play a little more competitive than they do casual. So I'm interested to see what the numbers look like there. And also, I think that the fact that we're capturing the person self-assigned play level. Like, I still consider myself a novice because I make really dumb mistakes and I lose more games than I win. So I would still consider myself novice. The bulk of the people that are reporting are intermediate, which I think covers the majority of the people in my community. And I'm just going to kind of curious to see how, once we have enough data, how the statistics break down based on the play skill as well. So again, there's some interesting stuff, and if there's pieces people are thinking of that were not captured, definitely let me know and see if we can include it. The one thing we have to be mindful of, it's a balance of them being able to do it really quickly on their phone or doing it on their computer, and not overwhelming them with too many questions, because if you have to answer 30-40 questions every time, people just won't use it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, I think we covered the covered the tool enough at this point. Yes, Battle Report tool. All right, so let's get to the exciting stuff. Now, we're going to go ahead and start off with solos. Now, we'll go alphabetical. So if you're reading along in War Room, you can get our sort of our take on everything. So I'm going to go ahead and have Mike start, and we're going to go down the line, starting with the Dunya Knot. Mike, what do you think about the Dunya Knot?
Well, I'd love to start with the Dunya Knot, but they're not a solo.
No, sorry. Oh, we started with units. My bad. My brain got everything backwards. All right, we're going to start with units. So, Dunya Knot.
Right. Okay. So the Junior Knot was having a look over them. They didn't really change too much. The one thing that has changed, from what I can see looking at them, is this like a little bit of a change to the Puppet Master ability. But other than that, where the change was mostly a minor thing, where I'm trying to remember exactly where it was that the actual change was. I think it was something with how it applies to enemy models or units. But with the Junior Knot, really they haven't really changed too much. If you're bringing them along for the support option, then they're pretty much the same as they were before. You still got the healing that they can all do. You can still apply your Puppet Masters all over the place. Oh yeah, so that was the change I remember now for Puppet Master, where rather than choosing any dice to reroll, you have to reroll all or nothing for Puppet Master. So that was the big change there with the Puppet Master rule.
Yeah, that seems pretty reasonable, to be quite honest. Like being able to reroll either or all before was highly powerful. I mean, it lets you, it let you choose crits, that sort of thing. So, I still think that these guys are actually in a really good place for trolls, and their cost actually is really, really low considering what effect they have on the battlefield. Having only used them a few times, they are just super, super fun to play with.
I mean, their command went down a little bit, but we've seen that across a lot of them. So that you can't spread them out quite as far. And I think their magic ability actually went up from a 5 to a 6. So if you do want to throw those Puppet Masters onto a beast, or an opponent, you have a little bit more of a chance. I mean, 5 was pretty bad before. 6 is a minor improvement.
Yeah, if you're looking for a support unit that just improves your accuracy or your damage output for that one clinch attack roll that you need, the Junior Knot is probably better than any other support soloable unit that we can put down on the table for that. They pay for it by being horrifically fragile, but other than that, they haven't really changed much. Okay, from Mark II, they're pretty much as they were. That's other than that one tweak to Puppet Master.
Yeah, and I still think that you're going to see them used widely across the faction. They're inexpensive enough and they do enough work that you will see them. I've already got them in a couple of lists just to make sure that I can hit the crucial rolls that I need and to affect the game. So I think they're pretty awesome, and I again think you're going to see them in quite a few lists.
And the point cost makes sense because these were a late model and they only went from 3 to 6, so it makes sense that they're close because they were one of the last models released before Mark III.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's move on to the Cruel Warriors. Now, Fraser, did you have a chance to use Cruel Warriors before Mark III?
Actually, Cruel Warriors was the first unit I bought after buying my battle box, so I actually had a little bit of experience with them early on, and then dropped them like a hot potato when I started playing EE and Ruins. So I hadn't played them recently, but no, I played them a fair bit when I first started out.
All right, so let's talk about Creels then. Give me your opinion of how they are currently, including Cabers and including UA.
So with the biggest thing is they're cheap now, right? They're 11 points for 9 models, so that's they're by far much cheaper. I mean, they lost the prayers. They don't have Fervor. There we go. I'll get to the right vowel eventually. Fervor and Swiftfoot, which I think is a significant loss for them. I mean, they still have a combined range. I mean, they're cheap, which I think is the biggest thing they have going for them. Standard Bearer, I mean, it lost steady, so you can't. They can be knocked down, which with the new tough rule makes it. I think is a bit ahead of them a hit as well. Yeah. They get the 3-inch repose move, so they can move that additional 3 inches at the end, so you can get them up closer. Now the Caber, I rarely did it. I only because every time I went to buy one, they never had them in stock at the store I went to, so I didn't use the Caber very often. And I also didn't use it in parallel to the in Mark II. I didn't use them along with the Earthborn, which is apparently the best way of doing it. So I don't have a lot to say on the Caber part, but I think overall they took a significant hit. I mean, losing the prayers, losing the ability on the Standard Bearer to not be knocked down in Mark III are significant. I think the only advantage they have is they're so cheap now.
Yeah, they're highly inexpensive, and with unyielding, they have a pretty good armor stat, and it's kind of funny too because now we've got the Krill Stone that can be up to what was it, like 14 inches that we've discussed at this point. So you
Yeah,
can
it's 14
completely
inches.
encompass a unit of Krill warriors engaging a front line who are then armor 19. And then with certain warlocks like Madrak and Gunny, you can make it so that unit is basically not going anywhere. Like at armor 19, engaged, like and can't be knocked down. That stuff's pretty crazy. So.
And you almost need to have that take that unit. Also, you almost need to take that unit just because of the cost of the getting those 3 sorcerers onto
Yeah,
the.
exactly.
Yeah,
Oh
so
my
it's
god,
sort
it's
of
like
balances out.
160 or 120 bucks just for
I know it's
just the
ridiculous.
3 sorcerers. Pretty silly. I think you'll see them in a few lists, and I think that they'll be useful in some cases. But right now, I think that with the meta the way it is, they won't have a place right away until we sort of figure out where the dust settles. And that is probably the most optimistic I can get about them. And ultimately speaking, I don't think they're terrible. They're not great. They're better than Burrowers. And the Burrow is probably the bottom of the barrel right now.
Yeah. They're a good speed bump. I mean, if you with under the stone, you're at least going to slow things down. You're not probably going to do much back to them, to the opponent, especially if they're going jack heavy or things like that. But you're just going to slow them down to make sure they get your important stuff up and behind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my real beef with the Krill Warriors at the moment is that they've just turned into they're just a pure up tar pit unit, but they're a slow tar pit unit.
Yeah.
You know, and at least most tar pits for other factions are a speed 6, whereas they are speed 5. Admittedly, they do have the 1-inch reach, which is pretty much like a privilege that trolls enjoy, is like the universal 1-inch reach on the infantry Trollblood models now. But that aside, it kind of feels like you're just taking a slow, easy-to-hit unit and hoping that the armor is going to be high enough that you're just not going to care when the opponent hits them. The caber throwers, I can understand the caber throwers to an extent, where it's either to a nervous so you can get like 1 attack per round, because back in Mark II, more than a few times I've like one-rounded a Colossal with 3 cabers, with Gristle, just because I could.
Yeah, when you crank them all up to 18, and then you give them 2 attacks, and they charge, and yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
Maximum potential I worked out was Mat 11, Power 23 with 2 attacks each. Maximum potential.
Yeah, so, they're kind of ridiculous. Well, they were anyway.
Yeah, so say.
Unfortunately, emphasis on the past tense now.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the one thing I don't understand is, at least if you're going to give them that rule, at least still give them the hand weapons, but put the cumbersome rule on, so you can't attack with both weapons in the same activation. At least then they can still make a free strike.
I thought they just turned into a regular dude when they use their caber.
I know. With the caber throwers, let me just go ahead and bring their card up here. Caber throwers, their only melee weapon is a caber, and it has single shot. So after an attack with this weapon is resolved, it cannot attack with this weapon for 1 round, and it is the only weapon they have.
So yeah, that's pretty significant.
So yeah, so an opponent could just walk out and walk away and not have to take a free strike, or arguably what could be even worse, and this really is on the troll player, an opponent could walk a model away, you free strike with the caber, but then you can't attack with that caber in your turn because it's for 1 round.
No, thank you.
So it would have to be a very high value target for you to choose to make that free strike.
So let's have a moment of silence for the Krill Warriors and Caber Throwers out there, everybody. Dan put this in because I'm not going to stop talking.
Poor Dallas with all the Krill Warriors he just got too.
Oh, I know. He'll use them. He will.
Oh, he loves them. He'll use them regardless.
So I'm going to skip over the Krill Stone because it is largely unchanged, except for the way that self-sack works. We discussed this in the pre-show. works effectively like Take Up used to, where you can, with Madrak 2, you can shunt it off to the Krillstone, and then he can shunt it off to one of the other guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to put a diagram together about like the optimal Grim Salvation formation. But at the moment, essentially with Madrak in the middle, you'd have the Krillstone itself behind him, just under 3 inches away, like 2.999 inches, just to make it safe from AOE's. And then you'd have like 3 or 4 Krill scribes again, like about 2.99 inches away from him. And then again, that maximum distance in front of Madrak, you're probably going to have a single Fen Blade, and then he'll be flanked by 2 pairs of warders. And that formation is nightmarish to deal with. Somebody has like a range attack of opportunity, and they're dull enough to put it into Madrak. You ditch it off onto the Fen Blade just to get your vengeance. But if an opponent's going for like a serious assassination run, they've got to get through a Fen Blade, 4 warders, 5 Krillstones, and then Madrak's transfers, and then they can hurt him.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Madrak's going to be nerfed fairly quickly.
At the moment, considering that a lot of people have been asking, like, how do you kill Madrak? And a few people said, yeah, it's easy. You just kill one guy, send in a war beast, throw him away, and then job's a good one. Problem is, throws are melee attacks, and once you hit him with a melee attack, he ditches that and all of his effects onto another model.
Oh, that's so funny. I'm still
So
chuckling
the
myself.
Warbeast effectively grows like 5 inch reach to go pick that model up to throw it.
Yeah, it's like, I've seen some people saying as well that, okay, well, just apply Butcher 3 to face, and again, job's a good one. My Madrak 2 list runs, my 2 Warbeasts are a Pyrotroll and Mulg, which is exactly 28 points, which is his Warbeast points. And if you know you're up against Butcher 3, you just put up Arcane Suppression every turn. So if he wants to use his Impending Doom to pull you in, that costs him 3 focus. Every Flashing Blade costs him 2 focus. Energizer costs him 3 focus to cast. He'll run out of focus to do all of his shenanigans, even with his feet, before you can get through all of his transfers and Grim Salvation buddies.
Did Butcher 3 lose Shadows of Death?
He didn't, but all that really does is it stops tough. Because it doesn't stop transfers anymore, and it doesn't work on Grim Salvation.
Well, alrighty. So let's go ahead and talk then about the Northkin Fire Eaters. Now, this is one of my favorite units from Mark II, and they've remained largely unchanged. Now, everything lost Fearless because there's no command checks anymore, there's no terror, and that sort of thing. So the core identity of the unit stays the same. When they're on fire, they can't be knocked down or made stationary. They get additional damage, blah, blah, blah. Basically exactly the same. These things are still going to be as terrifying to play against as they were before, and they're effectively a point cheaper from what they were, which is kind of ridiculous if you ask me. I am looking forward to putting these things on the table and just continually setting so many things on fire. They are excellent because they're AD, they have great board control presence, they have a very long threat range, and there's a whole lot that you can do with that in this game right now. And then what you can do is you can use them to vanguard for your slower stuff that's harder to get out of scenario, and you can use them as a posturing piece, since obviously your opponent knows your threat ranges now, which means you're basically using them to say, alright, I have 15 inches of total threat where I can light your shit on fire. If you want to come into that, I'm willing to sacrifice all this, but then you have to chew through everything that's behind it. And they're so inexpensive at 14 points for 2 units that, I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, their effectiveness on the table it's really hard to quantify when you think about all of those numbers at once. And then you realize, oh man, Trolls have the freaking farthest threat ranges in the game right now. Kind of dumb. So, having a fair bit of experience with them, I think that they're going to be just as good, if not better, than they were before. Fraser, did you have any experience with them before?
I played them both at the end of Mark II, and I've started playing them Mark III as well. And it's much like what we had with the Burrowers. There's that psychological effect too, where they know that they're always figuring, okay, it's 6-inch spray plus the 9-inch charge. So you're right, that 15 inches that really forces the opponent to think about it and where they're going to place, and they'll actually try to avoid them if they can. So I think for me, they're almost an auto take in every list I've put together so far.
Yeah, whereas in Mark II, if you weren't running a tier list that stopped you taking fire readers, you took 2 units of fire readers. It was that simple. When the Mark III was announced and they said they were rebalancing every unit, I expected the fire readers to be one of the first Trollblood units on that chopping block. I expected them to keep most of the shenanigans but lose the boosted damage rolls while on fire. I thought they'd keep boosted attack rolls and lose the boosted damage. At least it makes them somewhat less threatening to warcasters and warbeasts, but they kept the whole thing. One thing that they did lose is while they're on fire, they are no longer immune to stationary. So if there's a feat that does stationary that doesn't rely on an immunity to cold, then they can suffer it. Like, for example, if one of them is shot by Lilith 3 on her feat turn, for example, then you can get a stationary fire eater.
Makes sense. I'm actually kind of surprised that her shots weren't typed cold, though.
Well, Lilith, there's never really a reason for her shots to become typed cold, especially considering that her feat can be applied by any model in her control range. So a regular Nis Archer can apply stationary on a direct hit.
Interesting. Honestly, though, I still think that these guys are going to be highly effective in almost every list building scenario. They're just good at almost everything across the board.
Yeah,
and they're actually one of the few troll casters that are troll units that didn't get the 1-inch reach. They're still 0.5 reach.
Yeah, that's largely because with Epic Madrak they would have been ridiculous, just because with a 1-inch reach with boosted attack and damage rolls on every swing, they'd be very efficient at cleaning through units.
Agreed.
That's the only reason I can think of for why they didn't get a 1-inch reach. But yeah, whereas the fire readers still take them. Whereas with a Pyre Troll, you're looking at 28 points. 7, 14, 23 points. Sorry, for the full module, and they'll continue to do everything that they did before. And infantry will hate them. Warjacks and Warbeasts will hate them because they just trade up so well. And I always use them to go for targets of opportunity behind the front line, because essentially you've got a 6-inch no-go zone that any squishy support models or solos have to avoid, or basically they lose them. And sometimes that's worth losing a whole fire reader unit.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and previously I used to use them mostly for to set the edge of your offense. They're the ones who are vanguarding for you, and it didn't matter if you lost a few or even all of them. But when you stop your opponent at the AD line, and they don't want to advance because they don't want to lose models, it makes the game really difficult to deal with from that point on, because you've got such a speed advantage. And now trolls, as we will discuss going forward, have such fast infantry that we're going to see them have a very positive effect on our game. So that being said, let's go ahead and move on to
Pummeler crew.
Oh, pummelers. So, Mike, I'll let you talk about the pummeler.
The pummeler is everything that I'd always wished that the Thumper crew would be. Quite simply, it's a top quality AOE piece. Whereas, yes, it has inaccurate, so you're going to be Rat 1, Rat 3 when you aim. But an AoE that does auto power 10s to everything under the template, and then drops a second AoE that you know is going to go either direction 6, 1, or 2, so it's going to go forward in some fashion, which again does auto power 10s to everything under that AoE. The Pummeler crew is amazing, and especially if you take Dozer, because then if it aims you can make it Rat 5, so it can hit most infantry or heavies. Not that if a power 16 would hurt a heavy, the blast probably wouldn't, but for power 16, power 14. Sorry, I was looking at the range. Power 14 will still do a bit of damage to a heavy, but Rat 5 is high enough that you could actually hit something. but more importantly, re-rolling all those deviations, because you've got 2 deviations there. Lucky Shot will do, again, quite a bit of work there for 1 Fury. There's nothing not to like about the Pummeler Crew. 6 points. It's on the expensive side as far as as far as the weapon crews go, but it's one of the best.
Yeah, absolutely. My assessment on this unit is actually probably it's one of the reasons why I think we're going to see a shift away from infantry for a little bit, because there are such potent ranged pieces in the game that are inexpensive. It's 6 points, but its effect on units on the board is huge with its AoE like that. I mean, you could literally just take half a unit off the table depending on depending on your roll. And I mean, the high explosive 10 is so powerful that most infantry units, it's like, well, you just trivially take things off the table that are, 15 armor or below. So, I mean, the averages just skew so heavily in that favor. And with Troll, since you're setting the line for your opponent most of the time, this thing gives no shit. Like, it's just going to shoot whatever it wants all game and have an appreciable effect on it. And man, like, that is something that's really going to be interesting for the Troll game when this model actually comes out.
Agreed.
No, I agree.
All right, it's done.
I agree. The Pummeler Crew is basically it's the long range piece that Trolls never had.
Yep, I love it. It's basically what the Thumper used to do, only better. All right, so we're going to gloss over the Burrowers because bad, and we will gloss slightly over the Bushwhackers. So, Mike, the Bushwhackers changed only slightly from what they did before. I think the biggest changes we saw were actually to their attachment. So let's go ahead and go over that really quick while we're talking about them. I mean, they're basically the same range 14, POW 10, the CRA, RAP 4 unit that they were before, right?
Yeah, well, the mortar's pretty much unchanged. I think it used to be range 14 as well. It's gone down to range 12. Mm-hmm. But other than that, the mortar is exactly the same as it was before. But again, it now has the high explosive rule, so it's another AoE that just says automatic power 10s.
Yeah, that I can definitely dig. And so they still have Slip Away, which is actually pretty awesome. And so they all have combined arms. It's a reasonable ranged unit. We don't have a lot of ways to make it better, and since it's kind of expensive as it is, I'm not certain we'll see it used too often, honestly, unless you have a different idea, Mike.
Well, it is an advanced deploying artillery piece that can advance 6 inches a turn, which, don't get me wrong, before the mortar crew was effectively the only artillery in the game that could move and shoot. Whereas now, all artillery can move and shoot, but this guy has a bigger speed than most other ones.
Yeah, he's 6 to their 4.
Yep. And arcing fire is arcing fire. It's still just as awesome as it always has been. You'll never hit anything because he's Rat 0, but with high explosive, you only effectively lose 2 power off a direct hit. So he doesn't really lose too much on that anymore now. So I think that as Bushwhackers with the mortar is actually more worthy than they were before. And towards the end of Mark II, you were seeing lists where that little module was creeping in there, like the minimum Bushwhackers and the mortar. So I think that they may actually see quite a bit of gameplay.
That's possible. I'll entertain that. We're going to go ahead and just go over the Scattergunners quickly because they have almost changed, like, literally nothing. I mean, just like before, they have nothing on the back of their card, but the difference is the standard bearer now still has a +2 command. So that makes the unit a little easier to spread out. Still has quick work, still has clear, works almost exactly the way that it did before.
Yeah.
So
I was kind of disappointed with this one because this is the unit I really want to work. Like I bought these models. I just love the idea of these giant muskets just laying waste to everything in front of them. But they never seem to. I never seem to find a good place for them. They always seem to be just shot up before I could do anything. And I don't think that's changed. I mean, do you see that currently? Do you see a place for these even in a Gunbjorn list?
No, not quite. I just anything that can't like any way to increase the rat's gonna be better. So Grim 2 is probably still the best spot, but Grim 2 doesn't really have a problem infantry clearing. Like he can bring all of the AoEs and the things that are even better when their rats go up. Fewer rolls, less chance to have to hit things. Like it's. I think they're not terrible, and they might find a place, but we'll have to see. Gristle 1 actually intrigues me with them because Calamity can still be good on a unit, and if it's a large unit, then Scattergunners really start to, their stock starts to go up. That being said, with as small as they changed and with normal Trollblood attitudes, I don't think you're going to see like a marked rise in how often they're taken. So let's go ahead and move on to the Sons of Brag. Now, these guys changed rather minimally as well. One of the big things that you notice is that since they are a character, they all maintained 8 wounds, which is pretty freaking awesome for this unit. They're still 13, 15. Fell Concert still means they can't be affected by Fell Colors other than the ones that they make. They have Call to Action, Knockdown Models, so the unit stand up. Call Defiance is now changed to while knocked down, they can still tough. And then Fervor got changed to just +2 damage rolls, because the POW 14 spray at Rat 8 was pretty bonkers before.
Yeah, but then we got Fire Readers, so it wasn't so bad. So it wasn't so bad. But
yeah, it's not so bad, and they dropped effectively a point in cost due to the drop in Fervor, the way that it exists. And I guess I'm okay with that. You still just need to remember that they are a very, very self-reliant unit that has super high accuracy and really good damage output.
The two other things to note with them is the whole unit lost a point of speed. So they are now speed 5. So they did lose a point of speed. And the other guys in the unit besides Rathal, they did reap the benefits of like the 1-inch reach that most Troll infantry units got. So effectively, they've lost a ½ of threat range. But overall, as you said, I like the Sons of Brag. I liked them before, anyways. But now they're a little bit slower, but they have like that little bit more coverage for what they can attack. And as you said, keeping those 8 wounds each makes a big difference for them.
Yeah, it makes them a lot harder to pick off than, say, things like Great Bears. And their damage output's still there. It's only slightly less. I mean, I think it's only, like, against a heavy, it's only, like, you do, like, 7 or 8 damage less normally because of the drop in power based on their attacks. So it's not terrible. I think you'll still see them played. I will probably play them. I like them. The speed drop is probably the most concerning thing to this one. So, but I don't know. We'll see what effect it has on the table with those guys. I mean, they were seldom taken already, so I don't know. We'll see how the fickle meta treats them. Okay, we can move on to the Thumper crew. Fraser, go ahead and take us through and tell me what you think.
I have never played this, and they're trying to bring it up on War Room. I always liked the model. I mean, I saw the model on the shelf multiple times. It said I should buy this, and never did because I didn't see it didn't fit into anything I was playing at the time. So, but changes. It's gone up to 5 points, so it's a little bit cheaper. It's now mobile infantry, so you can move around and still shoot. It's got take up. It got +2 POW, so it's now a POW 16. Other than that, and I mean it still has momentum, which it had before, which means it can slam models D3 inches away. But I never had the opportunity or the inclination to actually play it. I don't know about you guys.
It was a much maligned model in Mark II, just because the artillery were not super special back then. Now, due to its high power and low cost, it's actually quite interesting to see. At POW 12 or range 12 POW 16, that's a highly effective piece, especially when you think that it's when you consider that it's a really accurate knockdown piece at Rat 7, for targets. You only need 7s on Warp Wolves for knockdown. That's pretty good. Not only that, but you're pinging a POW 16 against their low armor. There's a number of applications that I can see with this, especially at only 5 points. Like, if the model didn't cost like $45, I might actually own one currently. That being said, I think that it has really good board control options for trolls, and it gives us a chance to not necessarily scalpel pieces, but make it much easier for us to control a heavy or an important piece over the board, because we can just rely on that knockdown with pretty high accuracy. And then once it starts aiming, like you're Rat 9 against whatever you're doing, and it's still range 12, sitting behind all your other stuff. And then if your opponent decides that they really want to devote models to kill your 5-point cost thing, then they've probably already made a bad mistake there, because it's a very inexpensive piece that will be taking shots from your opponent. Mike, what do you think?
The one thing about momentum worth bearing in mind is people who like to throw models into zones to contest, to try to make you come to them. Whereas with this, as long as you're not talking about a heavy, you could just shoot the model, slam it out of the zone, and then just throw it yourself and score the point, and then you'd reverse the situation on them. So in that respect, the Thumper is going to see play for different reasons, because it actually serves more as a control piece, I feel, or the threat of control, than as a defensive piece, even though its power is quite high.
I'd say that's a fair assessment. On top of that, its damage is so high that regardless of what you're shooting at, it's got value. Like, it doesn't matter what you shoot with it, even if it's not something that you need to knock down. The POW 16 kills, so many things that aren't War Beasts or Warjacks. Like, solos just die to that. If you're standing still, you can hit most things, which means you've got a real chance at just killing whatever you've hit. So it's a strong piece, and I really hope that people give it a look, because I think it could have a pretty good place in current trolls. All right, Mike, we're going to go ahead and move on to the Trollkin Champions. Now, this is a kind of exciting unit because they've been sort of maligned over the course of Mark II. Why don't you go ahead and give us your assessment of Mark III Champions?
Yeah, Mark III Champions are kind of like an in-between between Mark I and Mark II. In Mark I, for those who weren't around that long, champions used to have +2 defense all the time while they were in base contact with each other, and they gained +1 to attack and damage rolls for every other champion in the model that hit a model that turn, so they escalated in their damage output. So they don't have that bit anymore, but defensive line now is kind of the same thing that they had before. So they got +2 defense against melee attacks only, and they have and they are immune to knockdown while they're base to base with each other. So they're one of those units where you see a little bit of a recurring theme for quite a few Trollblood models, where you still have tough and some way of having knockdown immunity. By themselves, the drop down to 5 boxes each with armor 18 under the stone isn't great. They will die more often than not to any kind of boostable boostable range attack or damage roll. So there aren't really many ways in that respect to boost them, though there are a few casters now who have defense buffs, which we didn't really have before, so that helps them out a bunch. Scaldy is interesting for one main reason, and it's his Tactics Northkin. Almost certainly it suggests what our first theme book is going to be, considering it's one of the few subtypes that trolls have as a faction. That aside, he gives them relentless charge while he's still alive, so Pathfinder on the charge, and they always have overtake while they're with him, so they can spread out a little bit to kill some models, and then they can try to get back into base contact for that defense buff. I'm sure we'll be coming to him later under solos, but it's also worth mentioning the Champion Hero, because he gives every champion Retaliatory Strike, which with a 1-inch melee range and Power 11 Weapon Master, any opponent any model who fails to kill a champion is certainly going to feel their wrath afterwards.
Oh yeah.
I can definitely dig it. And now, I mean, you look at some of the really iconic and interesting pieces in Trolls over the past couple of years, and Scaldi and the Champion Hero were really unique, beautiful models that just never saw the table because they didn't, they didn't have value outside of the Champion unit. And now you've got a chance to put them on the table. And, with the new gorgeous sculpts we have, I mean, the Champions, they're going to see a ton of play at this point. There's just too much synergy with too many Warlocks to make them, absent from the meta. Between Kalandra or Magic 1 or, a number of others, there's too much synergy there to be forgotten. Furthermore, they're still Weapon Master, and their Reach 1, which is fan-freaking-tastic. They're going to be taken all over the place now.
Yeah, whereas champions are devastating, and once you start looking at the blood fury on them as well, 4 dice plus power 11 per guy on a retaliatory strike becomes very scary.
I have to admit this. I've actually played Champions for the first time with the in my tournament this weekend, so they were fun to play.
Yeah, it was Champions were fun to play before. The only real problem is Warders happened, which kind of took away any argument that you had to take Champions, because Warders hits just as hard with Reach.
True.
And I think that's why you're going to see both of them. They both serve interesting purposes in that Champions are resilient in the defense respect and Warders are resilient in armor. And the output starts to get really close when you start to take into effect battle-driven. So I think that you're going to see these guys played quite a bit, and I'm excited to actually put mine on the table for the first time in probably like 2 years almost, since the first time I played Family Reunion. So I'm excited for what we will see. Now we're gonna go ahead and move on, and I've engineered this rather well actually, that I get to talk about all the things that I'm most excited about. So next we're gonna talk about Fenblades, and I've gushed a number of times I think over the course of the last 2 weeks, especially since Lock and Load, about how I think that these guys are probably the best single wound infantry in the game now. They have some of the highest threat. They're highly accurate. They have Vengeance. They're still hard, which is awesome. They have a large footprint still. And they kept no quarter and got cleave. Holy crap.
Yep.
I don't know how this unit got better when people... I remember a lot of people in the larger Seattle meta complaining. They're just like, I don't know how these freaking things got better. They were already a problem before. So they got more expensive by roughly the same amount everything else did. Everything doubled points. The unit's still 12 guys. Reach, so 2-inch range. Cleave, POW 12. And no quarter is still effectively everything it used to be except for the Terror Fearless part. So, plus 2 inches of movement, Pathfinder. Holy crap. Fenblades fit in so many lists. I mean, they are a versatile, self-sufficient tool, and we'll talk about this when we review solos, but now the freaking Fenblade Kithkar gives them +2 while they're in command from him. Yeah, +2, Matt, while they're in command. Like, what on earth? Kind of silly. Guys, what do you think about the Fenblades? I think they're ridiculous.
I'm glad I own 2 units.
I only own the 1 unit at the moment. I have a second unit attachment because I have 2 Long Rider units now that I have my Bear Riders that I made. So I was gradually chipping away on being able to build end times for Epic Bad Rex tier list, because that was going to be hilarious to run at least once. But yeah, Fenblades, they are great now, as they finally answered the Fenblades versus Quill Warriors debate.
That is very true.
Definitely over.
Because a very good thing with them is worth noting is the changes to Vengeance, because Vengeance now triggers on any damage taken. So an opponent could hit one and you pass a tough roll and the whole unit gains vengeance. Whereas before, a guy had to actually die, so in some ways you were punished if you passed a tough roll before because you had guys that were just in the way.
And now there's really no penalty.
Yep.
Well, I mean, other than clogging up your own works, but that's not really that big of a problem. If you've been playing Trolls long enough, you know how to navigate medium bases.
Yeah, I'm still working on that one.
The really sad part is that the Kith card did lose Tactician, I do believe, which means that you can't charge through each other anymore, which is, I mean, it's not a huge deal. I dealt with it when I played before, and it wasn't a big problem. So I'll take the better accuracy over the Tactician any day.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we can go ahead and move down the line. Fraser, it's your turn once again. So, Highwayman, take it away.
So I think they got Pathfinder. That was the biggest thing that jumped out at me when I first saw this card, because that was my complaint, is that you couldn't get the solo had Pathfinder, but they didn't. So it's nice to see that as an improvement, as well as, I mean, they're a little bit cheaper. Actually, no, I think they're a little bit more expensive. No, they're a little bit cheaper. There we go. They're 915 points for the different units. So they lost Camouflage. Nope, sorry. They lost Camouflage, but they gained Pathfinder. So that means some changes. I mean, their pistol's the same range. They still got 2 shots. I've had some models on my painting table for like a year. I keep trying to get through. So I've yet to field these in Mark II. So, but I think that
let's not gloss over that they actually gained Swift Hunter now. So when they kill a model, they move 2 inches.
Didn't they? I thought they had that before.
They did not.
Ah,
no,
okay.
They did have Swift Hunter before.
I played them like once.
I'm bringing up. I'm gonna find the old card, see if I can find it for
I
here.
mean,
But bottom line, it's
but I mean, it's not something to gloss over. Like it makes them pretty effective, and they're going to be just as good in the list that they were good in before. The one thing that I will note is that now, like, you're not like completely tied to taking Braylon with them. They're better with her, obviously. But Braylon is a solo too now that we'll talk about later, who is can activate or act independently of Highwayman and still be effective.
Yeah, the one other thing that's worth noting about the Highwayman is, yes, they lost Camouflage, but they made up for that somewhat by gaining a point of base defense, because they are now just straight up defense 13.
Dodgy trolls.
That's good. They needed that.
I like defense 13. All right, Mike, you get to talk about Long Riders, and I'm jealous.
Yeah, Long Riders again are one of my favorite units. So much so that I spent no small amount of money making my own Long Rider unit. So it's really happy to see how they kept the 8 wounds each for Mark III. I think that when you look at Long Riders now, because this is one of the thoughts that I was taking when I was looking at them, is with Long Riders, yes, they're a cavalry unit, but you're better off not thinking of them as a cavalry unit in the conventional sense, because they actually have shorter threat ranges than most of our premier melee units. Because they've got an 11-inch melee range now, because 11-inch threat range, because they lost a 2-inch reach and gained a 1-inch reach instead. The flip side for basically keeping every single other rule that they had, which makes them just as crazy as they always were.
Well, and now they gained follow-up standard too, so there's a little bit of a trade-off there.
Yeah, so they don't need Hawthorne for follow-up, which is great. But one of the things that is interesting about the Bull Rush order, I need to double-check this via the rules forum. Okay, but this does now mean that Long Riders get 3 attacks each, because if it's an activation where you don't make impact attacks, the rules for cavalry now say that you get to make a mount attack, but the Bull Rush order isn't a charge. So I need to check this via the rules forum. But do you get the slam attack, a mount attack, and a melee attack?
So, based on the wording here, it doesn't seem like that's the way it works, because it says you must do one of the 3 things: run, charge, or slam.
Yes. So if you slam, then you're not charging, and under the if I just bring up the rule book here, I'm just having a quick double check under cavalry.
The wording used to say that if you were to slam, you are considered to have made a charge effectively, which is limited. Which is why I limited you from making them out.
Yeah. So under mount attacks, so a cavalry model with a combat action for melee attacks can make one initial attack with its mount, just as with any other melee weapon. And under impact attacks, it states that instead of attacking with a weapon, you can't make an initial melee attack if you charge. Instead, a charging cavalry model can use its mount to make impact attacks instead. So, and a slam does not say that a slam is effectively a charge. It is something completely different. So I'll need to check it via the rules forum, but as it seems at the moment, it means long riders can potentially have 3 attacks each.
As worded, I think you're correct, but we'll see what the Infernals have to say about that one.
I think the Privateer Press accountants are happy that it went up to FA2.
God, I want another unit, but I'm so not ready to buy another unit.
Well, lucky enough, I own 2.
Yeah, I know. We've seen your bear
because you've got to drop 48 points to run the whole shebang. Because if you're taking 2 units, you are taking Hawthorne.
Oh yeah,
Of course.
You know, and I really hope that people take Long Riders in Mark III. I felt like so few people actually used this unit, and they were so good. They were easily the best cavalry.
Oh yeah, I don't think that was ever debated. Now the video that we did for Mark II, is there much changes in the tactics for that?
Almost nothing changed. The only difference is the way that follow-up works, because they get it by themselves without Horthol now. That's really the only difference, and the 1-inch reach. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, there is one other important difference, which is the way that impact attacks work now. Now you can actually choose to make impact attacks when you reach your charge target and not be penalized by killing your charge target with an impact attack. Because before, if you killed your charge target with an impact attack,
you lost your activation.
You lost your activation because you failed your charge.
Yeah. So does it redirect the charge now, or do you, what's the specific wording?
Okay, so now if you kill a charge attack with you, basically, if you make an impact attack against your charge target, you no longer get to continue movement afterwards, and you turn to face your target. So pretty much, it's the end of your charge movement. If you kill a target with your impact attack, then you can still redirect your normal melee attack onto another model. But again, because it's now no longer a charge attack, it doesn't get the boosted attack and damage roll.
And it then turns into POW 12 instead of POW 14.
Correct, but it's better that than not having an attack at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. I still think these guys are super effective, and I think they'll be utilized in a number of lists. I think they still have game with Madrick 1, Madrick 2, Gristle 2 even, and then Jarl makes them crazy with how fast they get. Just makes their threat range ridiculous. Man, I cannot wait to put so much of this on the table. I'm looking forward to gaming tomorrow with my friends and having a chance to put some of my theory craft into play. With that being said, we actually have a small list left for our infantry. What have we got here? We've got... all right, cool. Good job, Boardroom. Thanks for taking me out of that menu there.
So next up is Rune Shapers.
We've got Rune Shapers, Scouts, Sluggers, and Warders before we get to solos. But we've effectively reached our running length here. Fraser is going to turn into a pumpkin if we continue to record much longer. But keep that excitement, folks. Keep sending us data on our battle recording application there. Give us all that juicy information so that we can have an informed idea what the meta looks like. But this has been the Scrumcast, signing off.
Wow, that was fast.
Yeah, that hour went by extremely quickly.
Yeah, it certainly felt like it. Holy crap. I mean, it might come off a little bit dry, but yeah, that was a lot of information crammed into a very small period of time.
It was. No, I think it was good too, and it's. I was still good with another 10 minutes to finish off the last 4, but that worked as well. I wasn't going to interrupt you in the middle of that.
No,
so.
I think it was fine. Honestly, what we can also do is we can also orchestrate another recording day if we really want to get missed stuff. But solos are not going to take us long, and finishing out the last 3 or 4 won't be a problem.
No. And do we want to cover any of the minions or mercenaries as well?
We might want to do that, but I mean, most of them interact very similarly to the way they used to before. So it's not like a point of emphasis. I plan on testing out Saxonoric, the Feral Geist, Victor Pendrake, and the Swamp Gobbler Spells crew to see, like, those are the ones that I use the most to see if they were it. So I figure if anybody gets any experience playing them, we can use real experiences to sort of back up what we're thinking, because I can't tell really how they're going to work for us right now.
Well, I know that Alton Ashley, a lot of people were complaining about at the tournament because he gets that D3+3 shots against War Beasts, and then he gets his normal POW 12 on top of that. So there's a lot of people screaming that he's busted right now.
Yeah, Alton Ashley, it's it's not even the D3+3. It's the automatic grievous wounds on a 14-inch stick. That's the problem. Alton Ashley is one of the most powerful solos in the game at the moment for that reason.
I dig it. I'm going to go put that in my gunny list now.
Yep, there you go. He's in mine. So actually, one thing, and down the road, like once we get a little bit more into this, if we can start talking about, like, again, this may be something we can post to the Facebook page, or Mike, we can, if you post on your blog, we can link to it. But sort of that placement piece you're talking about, like having that little bubble around Madrak 2 or things like that, because that was the one thing I found when I played my tournament, my first game with Madrak. I had him in exactly the wrong spot at the wrong time almost the entire game. I mean, I still won that first game, but it wasn't because I was running Madrak. Madrak had little to no impact on that game for me. But just even some of those pieces, having some of that stuff, or even if you send a drawing, I can mock something up in Photoshop and paste it to the Facebook page.
Actually, if you've ever heard of Vassal, that's one of the best ways to give you like an in-game representation of distances and model placement.
See, I've heard of it, I've never used it though.
Check it out, it's one of the best ways to do that.
I can put something together in Vassal and I can get a screenshot it. That won't be a problem.
Okay, because I just think because some of the things we talk about, if we know we're talking about it ahead of time, we can maybe then say, hey, it'll be on the Facebook page. It just gets more people to look at that as well. So.
Yeah, a lot of our previous articles, like whenever I would post something like a tactics article or something, I would put a couple of images with Vassal images, so that people could see a visual representation of exactly how it's supposed to work.
Okay, cool.
I have Vassal on this computer. I'm going to have to change that.
Alright, guys, I'm going to go make some dinner. Go ahead and send this off to Dan. If he needs anything from me, I'm sure he will message me. But I'm going to go, and you guys have a good night.
You too. Take care, guys. You talk to you.